Hey, it's Lee. Welcome to Business Problem Solved. I thought twice uh, about doing this episode because today, the 5th of July, is the third anniversary of losing my best mate. If you've listened to the podcast from the beginning, you will know the story. I'll share the story briefly again in a moment. But I wanted to just share my reflections and thoughts from the last 3 years, because in the last 3 years, it's arguably been the most transformational for me personally, but also the after the worst event for me personally as well. So for those of you that haven't listened to the previous episodes, on the 5th of July 2018, I watched my best mate take his last breath in the hospice after his third bout of cancer. And before his passing, he shared with me 3 life lessons that he believed were the most important to him. Lesson number 1 was about always being yourself. Chris said that when him and an ex-partner were splitting up, he tried to be somebody that he wasn't. He tried to be somebody he thought that she wanted him to be, and they still ended up splitting up. Didn't make him happy, didn't make her happy, and they still ended up splitting up. So he told me that I should always be myself. If you're watching the video to this, you'll see that I've got a tattoo that starts 2.5 inches down my right arm. And the reason why that is because when I got a tattoo, I was more worried and bothered about what other people would think of me. So I got it in a place where I would be able to cover it up. So throughout my life, I have not been myself. I have tried to be somebody I thought other people would want me to be. But the last 3 years, I have consciously made an effort to be more myself. And what that means to me now really is about understanding the voice in my head and how that helps and hinders me, and try to change and reframe some of the things like Jack Canfield's chicken soup for the soul quote around event plus reaction equals outcome. All events in this world are neutral. Chris's passing is not a neutral event. It was a horrendous event, but there's nothing I could do about it. So I've got to treat it like a neutral event. It's my reaction to the events and things that happen that determine their outcome, whether they be positive or negative. And I think that's what that voice in your head allows you to see or to understand, those things, to allow you to try to create more positive outcomes. So that's always been yourself. A couple of weeks after that, after he shared that one with me, he said to me when I went to the hospital, he said, Lee, you turn up every time you can turn up to the hospital or his house. He says one of our other friends, Nash, rings him at 12 o'clock every single day. He says, when we grew up, we could have chosen different paths. So Chris was my best mate since the age of 1 when I moved onto the street with him. His mum and my mum used to push us in our prams as they went for a walk. And we went to different schools. We could have chosen different friends, different paths, but we didn't. Yes, we had weeks and months apart at times, but when we got back together, it was like we hadn't spent that time apart. He said to me, he said, make good friends because you never know when you're going to need them. And that for me now really means you never know when they're going to need them. You never know when you're going to need them either. I think there's a whole host of different times when we need people, when other people need us as well. And if in business, if you've got a team, just by asking them and creating an environment where, how are you, allows that opportunity for somebody to say that I'm not all right. And it's okay to say that you're not okay. And I think we need to create more opportunities and avenues for people to share that they are not okay when they're not okay. But they'll only do that if we create the right environment that allows them to do it, and we ask the right questions that allows them to give those answers. It comes with trust and increasing levels of trust. And I fundamentally believe that our best friends are the ones that we trust more than anybody else. So if you think about how you made your last friend, what is it that you did? You found a level of connection. You found something that you've got in common. You then spent time asking questions, learning about each other, sharing and creating experiences with each other. So how can you create experiences, learn with the people that you work with? How can we build more human connection with everybody around us? I fundamentally believe that that's the secret to everything that we do. It's people that make it, and the more connected we are to the people, the better. I always use the analogy of a nativity player, children's nativity player, and why I do that is, so I went on a stand-up comedy course. I've touched on this in a previous podcast, but went on a stand-up comedy course, and at the start of that, they asked us what was the most important thing in comedy, and we all said jokes was the most important thing, but it wasn't. Jokes is the material, and that's the third most important thing. The most important thing in comedy is connection with the audience, what's going on in front of you. And the second most important thing is performance, and that's how you vary your tone between the setup and the punchline. And then the third most important thing is the actual material. When we deliver change, when we lead people, we often lead with material. We lead with the processes, not necessarily our performance as a leader, our performance as a change person, or our connection with the people that we're asking and wanting to change. The nativity player, like I was saying, is arguably a children's nativity player. You turn up to primary school as a parent, and you sit in the audience, and you watch unfold in front of you, the worst singing, the worst acting, where people forget their words, snotty-nosed kids in front of you, stood in the wrong places, terrible singing, terrible outfits, but at the end of it, rapturous rounds of applause. It doesn't matter about how bad the songs are. It doesn't matter about the performance. It doesn't matter that people forget the words. The connection that the audience have with the people on stage is what makes that memorable, makes it memorable. So the level of connection far outweighs the performance and the material. And that was Chris's second lesson. It was make good friends. And that for me is all about connection. It's building trust. It's about how we tell and share stories with each other. And then a few weeks after that, we went to watch the Foo Fighters at the Etihad Stadium. 8 of us went. We brought him out of the hospice. He was really ill at the time. And on the way back from that, his youngest boy, after dropping Chris off at the hospice, asked his mum, is it too late for us to go to Anfield for a tour? Because we all support Liverpool. So we arranged that so we went to watch the Foo Fighters on Thursday. On the Sunday, we went for a private tour at Anfield, me and my boy, and Chris and his two boys. It was an amazing day. We had ice cream before we went in. We had a private tour around as much time as we wanted. And we all bought kits, and we made those experiences. We had that experience and stuff, and the laughs and the times and the memories that we made that day. And on the way back in the car, I was driving. My boy was sat behind me. Chris was in the passenger seat, and his two boys sat in the back of the car as well. And he looked over at me and said, "How many times could we have done this? How many times could we have gone to Anfield?" I said, "Loads of times." He said, "Well, why did we wait to the time that I had to be pushed around in a wheelchair? Why did we wait to the time when I couldn't get up out of the seat and sit in the same seats as everybody else?" So act now because time's limited was Chris's 3 lessons. So it was with always being yourself, making good friends, and time being limited. As when I watched him take his last breath and went outside the hospice after making the phone calls, I was really reflecting on my life. So I believe I've acted now far more in the last 3 years than ever before. I started the business with Jason, Get Knowledge, started this podcast. In fact, this came after. I've learned more, I've built more connections, made more friends, had more experiences. I've skydived from 15,000 feet after being, when I was growing up, I was too frightened to jump off a 9-foot wall at the back of my mum and dad's house. On the anniversary of Chrissy's passing, I skydived from 15,000 feet. Tandem skydive. I was attached to a man at the time who was in control of pulling the cord, so the parachute didn't. So the parachute opened, but I still did it. So I don't think I would have done that before. I've been on a comedy course. I've done some stand-up comedy gigs. I've presented to loads of people. I've created my own courses. I've started to act now, but that's only come following me always being myself and all making good friends, because we have an opportunity to make good friends in everybody we meet, whether it's colleagues, whether it's peers, whether it's friends, whether it's the person at the till in a shop, whoever it is. Whether it's somebody on social media, we have an opportunity to make better connections, make better friends. So yeah, so I think I just wanted this episode really just to say thank you again to Chris, for really thinking and taking the time to think about the 3 lessons when I asked him to reflect on his life, when his perspective on life changed. And it's because he thought about those things and then he's planted them in my head, and I've been able to take the last 3 years and think about them a little bit more deeper maybe than he even imagined they would be. But I fundamentally believe that these 3 things are the secrets of life, I guess. The secrets of what we can all do to be better humans, better connected. That for me is what success is that if you were to ask yourself, are you always being yourself in all scenarios? Are you doing everything you can to make better friends, make good friends? And are you doing everything you can to act now, because time is limited? I think if we all improve our scores and do a little bit more of those 3 things, then we will be more successful, whether that is building a business, whether it is leading people, whether it is delivering change, whether it is being a father. I think those 3 things, if we all consciously strive to do those 3 things better, then we will be more. And I've been asking people on the podcast recently, what is success? And that for me is what success is when I know that I'm being true to myself, when I've got and made stronger connections, and when I'm acting now, because we've all got to remember time is limited. So 3 years since Chris's passing, I'm still working on those 3 things, and I'll continue to work on those 3 things. I just wanted to bring them back to you, just to give you an opportunity just to reflect and think on what those 3 things mean to you, and how you can maybe apply those a little bit more in what it is that you do. And in fact, actually, I'm gonna set a timer on my phone, and I'm gonna stop talking in a second and then finish it in a minute. But I just want you to, there's gonna be a bit of silence, but I want you to think just for a minute about, are you always being yourself? Are you doing everything you can to make good friends? And are you always acting now, because time is limited? So I'm going to take a minute of that time and just let's have a little reflect and see whether we are doing those things. That's your minute. I just want to say thanks so much for everybody that listens to the podcast. Thank you for all of the feedback, the ratings. If you haven't yet subscribed, please do subscribe. If you've not yet rated it, please do rate it. It helps me bring amazing guests for me to learn from, and hopefully to share some value with yourselves. I've got some amazing series coming up that I can't wait to share with you. Whatever it is you're doing this week, have an amazing week, and I look forward to chatting again next.